Well, everyone, we're in for a treat today. It's my great pleasure to have another conversation with Alan Clay, who runs the Dwarf Planet University. He is much loved as a brilliant teacher, but what we're talking about today is his new book, New Stars for a New Era. And I love the subtitle, A Consciousness Workbook for 10 New Planets. And I think, honestly, Alan, I've been reading it this weekend. I think you've done an absolutely brilliant job on it. And just to flatter you, I'd just like to talk about some of the things that I really loved about it. I think this is going to be an absolute classic because it obviously can work for complete beginners, novices in astrology, but also old hacks like me, very experienced astrologers, because I learned so much going through it. So it's pioneering, it's groundbreaking, it's beautifully illustrated as well. I loved the illustrations. They were almost like tarot cards. There was so much in each of the illustrations for the dwarf planets. You could have spent quite some time just looking at the beautiful images, but it's going to be a long.
Let me give a plug in there for Karen La Puma,
Okay.
the astrologer who created those images. She's an American astrologer. So you can search out her site, Karen La Puma, and she's actually she does work with tarot images, and so she was creating that sort of
Yeah, I can see that there's so much of the archetype that was coming through in the illustration. I just thought it really inspired. But yeah, I think this will be a long-term reference book for people. It will be an absolute classic. It's something I'm going to be referring to a lot, and I've been around the block a couple of times. So, and I love the way you talk about them as a new octave of consciousness, because that's how I think about them too. But because you've made it a workbook, you are encouraging a conscious co-creation, because of course we co-create all the time. We're just not aware of it. But you are encouraging that very wise, focused, conscious co-creation, and that will help us to, I think, upgrade to this higher state of being that we're all aiming for. So
I think this is the big challenge at the moment, is to sort of bring these new consciousness energies into our consciousness. They're there at the moment. They're acting in our lives unconsciously, and they've been doing that throughout history. And now we've discovered them. We can consciously embody them. And as we do that, just becoming conscious of them enables them in our lives. That's the beauty of it. And so like in the classes that I run at the Dwarf Planet University, we look at the charts, and so we become conscious looking at the charts. But a lot of us can't really decipher charts, and that's a small audience. So with the book, I've tried to sort of open it up to, and lovely to hear that feedback, to everybody, so that if we're growing in consciousness, the book is useful.
Yeah, well, it's a service to humanity in that sense. It's a service to humanity, because there are not many of us, not many astrologers working with the Kuiper Belt objects, the dwarf planets at the moment. But your book will help that spread. It's rippling out, isn't it? Domino effect. So, and I just love the whole way you constructed it, because you've described the myths, which are so inspiring. I felt very inspired myself to kind of raise my consciousness. But you also, as well as the optimum expression of the archetype, you also shared with us the shadow side. It's very realistic. And all of those I love the practical exercises you put in for each dwarf planet. I thought that was brilliant to really help us connect with them, to really go through our day-to-day life and our day-to-day thinking, and how you're using these archetypes. And I just thought that was terrific. And also the fact that you can,
that's really kind of the groundbreaking, one of the groundbreaking things in the book is that those exercises. We've had Gong Gong conjunct Saturn in the sky sort of last year for a couple of periods, and this January, and I think consciousness exercises Gong Gong Saturn, and that's kind of where it came from. So I developed them last year during that Saturn Gong Gong conjunction, and it's come together in this last month in book form, sort of thing. So
yes, because you've got a very particular take on Gong Gong, haven't you, Alan? That you, particularly when it's been conjunct Saturn, which it just about still is now, you feel that it's been very related to kind of overwhelm and restriction, and Gongkun was a master channeler, wasn't he? But you're also seeing Gong Gong, the archetype, as being able to channel a lot of the psychic and cosmic energies that are coming in for us right now to presumably make them much more useful for us.
we disappeared there for a moment, I think.
Yeah, you're back. Yes.
I'm back.
Where's he gone?
There we are, Gong Gong and overwhelm, and suddenly it's
Yes. Off you
Gong
went.
Gong's all about channeling. He's was a master irrigator and channeler and so on, and taught people how to channel energies rather than dam and block. And so he's at the top level. He's all about sort of being able to connect with spirit energies or other energies, emotional and psychic energies. He's empathic consciousness. That's how I see Gong Gong. Empathic consciousness, where we can sort of feel inside another person's life, and that's an emotional experience, but it's also a psychic experience. We can see the world from their eyes. The world's different for everyone, and so we kind of assume that everyone looks at it the way we do. But when we've got the Gong Gong empathic energy, we can sort of feel inside another person's life. That's at the higher level, and as you're saying, so these outer planets, they're aspects of consciousness, and because they're aspects of, so inside Saturn, aspects of personality, the planets, and outside Saturn, aspects of consciousness, and how they manifest in our lives, therefore, depends on our current level of consciousness.
Yes.
So it's a very tableau. And so at the top level, Gong Gong was very spiritual and channeling and sort of, in contact with other realms. But at the unconscious level, he was a bit of an enfant terrible who sort of fought heaven, started to battle with heaven in myth, and because he wasn't satisfied with his lot and so on. Of course, that didn't turn out very well, and so at the myths tells us a lot about the unconscious level, because the myths they carry sort of information across culture and time, but we have to interpret them for the new time and the new culture sort of thing. And they arose at a time when most people in the world were kind of unconscious, and now we're getting more and more conscious. That's the challenge for us in this time. We're having to become conscious. We're seeing all of the the mess that's everywhere, and realizing how much we have to grow, all of us. It's a real sort of so that's where we are. So so Gong Gong acts differently. When we're unconscious, we can get very self-involved and indulge in our emotions. So we can't be empathic about other people because we're just so involved in ourselves. And it can be a lot of rage and then shame. That's from the myth. That's how we.
And do you see, in a mundane sense, Alan, in the myth, that he was so angry he didn't get the throne that he apparently bashed his head against the Buzu Mountains and actually altered the angle of the sun and the moon and the stars? He actually altered the angle of the sky, as I understand it, in the myth. Do you see that it's being linked to any kind of extreme weather events, extreme ecology change, ecological changes that we're going through now? I'm thinking of Uranus in Taurus as well.
Totally. Yes, I do. I don't know that I've kind of made the link particularly, but just it's obviously floods very much Gong Gong experience. So, and there has been, in different places in the world, there's been quite a bit of flooding in the near term. That's he's altering all of that sort of, banging his head and altering the flow of the rivers and so on. I mean, it's kind of violent change. It's sudden change. That's how I read that effectively. It was change for the better in the sense that the rivers then could flow, downhill, and so that's why rivers, flow the way they flow in the myth, and so that was the benefit of it. Another goddess had to come along and repair the damage that he did, and that sort of but that's how Chinese mythology works, that it's kind of an integrated system with the gods all working together one way or another. So I don't see, when I see a myth like that, that sort of, seems to be talking about a lot of trouble, I just read that as being the unconscious level and look for the higher side of it, basically.
And the other thing, one of the other lovely things I think you've done in the book, really, I love that, is that you've given each dwarf planet a different aspect of consciousness. Orcus, karmic consciousness, Varuna, mastery consciousness, Eris, diversity consciousness. I just really loved it. Varuna, that was another wonderful one. Yeah, Maki systems consciousness.
Yeah.
I could spend a lot of time with this book, and I know I will keep dipping back into it. So, and it's really given us a higher level cosmic map, I think, of where we're heading, because I say in all of my work repeatedly that the way out of this state the world is in, the only way out, is to raise our consciousness, to raise our frequency.
Yep, absolutely.
And so you've made it so practical, because you've given the explanation of the house positions, so people can go and find out where these dwarf planets are on their own chart. And also, I thought the descriptions of the various well-known people who have those particular house positions really helped it come to life in each case.
Yes. Now, it's been quite beautiful the way it's come together. That a lot of the examples, most of the examples, went in the last few months, sort of thing, and that really did bring it to life. It was actually, yes, because and so the house positions, the outer planets, we see them most clearly in our lives in the house position, and so it's the area of life where they're acting. And so that's why those house interpretations are actually quite meaningful. And the people, bring it to life, because it's hard to sort of, otherwise it's kind of esoteric and so on. So that, the examples in the house interpretations and the exercise that you mentioned, those are the two ways that kind of, I think, I've practicalized it in a way.
Yeah. So you've got the inspiration of the myth at the higher consciousness expression, plus you've got the grounded practicality of it. No, so that I thought was just wonderful. You've covered all the bases. You said that Ixion was one of the most viewed in terms of all of the dwarf planets, and that's a personal favourite of mine, Ixion. So do you want to talk a little about Ixion, Alan? Because I've quoted often, you've probably noticed in my updates, I've quoted that your very words of Ixion is the wild child who asked the question, are the rules we are playing by the right one? The right one. So I can really identify with Ixion. And of course, Ixion's in a very strong position right now, which we can talk about as well, in geometric terms.
In geometric terms, exactly. Yes. Seeker consciousness, I'm sort of thinking for Ixion. His myth again is kind of a bit shady, and so at the unconscious level, he can sort of encourage us to sort of follow our passion and not worry about anyone else and just think about ourselves and so on and so on. But, there are times when we need to do that. We're actually conditioned not really to do that in our society. We're conditioned to sort of play our part in the way that we say, not to follow our passion. So we need this energy now. Yeah, the wild child, the bad girl or the bad boy inside each of us that sort of we've locked away there and said, those are things that I can't do. And they're not like robbing banks and killing people and so on like that. They're just sort of inhibitions. I can't sort of laugh in the street, or I can't. I mean, it's unconscious things, and so we need to sort of let out that wild inner child and let that child play. I worked a lot as a clown and a clown teacher
I
in my
know.
life, and that's letting out the wild child to play. That's basically play is a big thing in a number of these new planets in terms of sort of how we approach the divine. It's actually kind of how Mia and Maki particularly talk about sort of the playfulness is important. And so I think we often get we're beyond the Saturn and the Neptune sort of strictness and sort of and we need to sort of and Ixion is the first one after. So Ixion, Orcus, and Pluto are brothers. They're in the same orbit. They're
Yep.
all in resonance with Neptune. So so they're spiritual. And Ixion's just sort of like the first one after Pluto, we can think. So there's an authenticity there that we have to, Pluto, the ego dissolves, traditionally. We sort of, can find the spiritual through the dissolving of the ego, but we need to be authentic in that process. So that's the Ixion's there to make us sort of help us sort of find an authenticity in ourselves, in our being. So we're happy being who we are. Now, the other side of Ixion is that we have to be sensitive to the unspoken agreements in our lives, the spoken and the unspoken agreements. And there's lots of unspoken agreements where we're, just agreeing unconsciously with people to do, not to see things. We walk down the street, we don't look at people in the eyes, we don't smile at them, we don't sort of touch them. It's all about, I mean, in some cultures we do. It's different in each culture. But so Ixion can sort of, we need to be sensitive to those unspoken agreements so we can know how far to go in our authenticity. It's challenging for some people that we are authentically who we are. And so it's sort of, we can go up to the boundary and just, if we want to push a little bit, we can go a little bit further. And that's what the clown does, I'm going to suggest. I've got Ixion in the 10th house, and I enjoy going out in the street and teasing people. Because
You've lived out your Ixion very fully. So, but actually, I mean, I think Ixion is expressing very strongly in society right now, because in the myth he murdered his father-in-law and Zeus gave him a second chance, and then he tried to rape Zeus's wife, so he blotted his book so badly he was eventually spun off on a burning wheel into eternity, I think. And that lack of moral compass, that lack of any accountability or sensibility, I think it has and is expressing very strongly in society. However, the other side of it, the kind of rebound is, okay, I'm going to, again, your words, Alan, I'm going to go off and find my joy, find my bliss through authenticity and simplicity. And it's weaving your own path. And I think so many people are doing that, that getting on a passionate spiritual mission, but it isn't just service to self. It actually also encompasses service to others. And I think that's the big divide, another big divide in society right now. So I personally love Ixion, because unless we get in touch with that sense of personal joy and authenticity, we're never going to live our lives to the full.
No, that's right.
So I think Ixion holds great promise. And I love that you called Ixion seeker consciousness as well, because so many of us are really getting on that spiritual path in a much bigger way than I think we ever have in our lives right now.
Yes.
And
Yes. So
go ahead.
well, I was just going to point out with the consciousness, so the Neptunian consciousness that we've developed in the last 200 years, we've found Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So that's intuitive consciousness, spiritual consciousness, psychological consciousness. And yes, that discovery of Neptune and spiritual consciousness, which has taken us out of the kind of religion area of spirituality, is really, we're at a real flowering point now, where we're, because with the discovery of these new planets, where we're just sort of, and people are, yes, feeling that realize, as we become conscious, we realize that there's quite a lot of work to do, and that the more of us doing it, the better it is. And so I'm just amazed in the classes how actually everyone's working, not just for themselves, but for others, in the way you were just mentioning.
Yeah. I think it's an essential part of where we're going, really. And it's part of this shift into more Aquarian energy as well. That this sort of slight paradox that although we have a greater sense of our unique essence, we also have a greater sense of contributing that to the community.
Yes.
And finding our soul tribe, or coming together in a physical community in some way. I mean, that's really accelerating right now. But it's interesting because Ixion is in strong geometry at the moment, isn't it? Sort of square to Salacia, opposing Maki, conjunct Quawa. So that's quite a bundle to talk about. But is there anything you'd like to share about?
In there? Well, the Ixion Quawa conjunction, which is fairly wide, I think maybe 5 degrees or something at the moment, has been going on for the better part of sort of 50 years or 40 years or something like that, and coming together and going apart. And so that's very, it's a signature of the times, it's a generational aspect, and we are needing that. So we've talked about Ixion. So Quawa is bringing spirit into matter through a practice.
Yeah.
Yoga, meditation, these are traditional ones, but anything can be a practice by which we bring spirit into matter. And that's what Quawa, in myth, Quawa is, sings and dances the world into existence. And that's just a beautiful sort of way for it to come into existence, I think. And it's a creative way, and I see Quawa as actually the higher octave of Jupiter. So where the higher octave is a more spiritual expression of that inner planet energy. And where Jupiter is kind of dumb luck, kind of, the Quawa is kind of smart luck. Quawa is singing and dancing. It's a dynamic meditation which creates the world, which creates our reality. We bring spirit into our reality, and that kind of energizes it and creates our reality, gives it life. So we've got those two together, which is an authentic practice of bringing spirit into matter. And so it's a unique one. So we're each sort of working to find this new way of being spiritual, of practicing spirit here on the planet.
And just to interject as well, I love the way you've embedded Quawa in community, that you come together in community to sing and dance. And I always think of the Sufi dancers creating this vortex of energy, this light spinning to create something at a higher level. So I think you've done that beautifully.
Yeah, I think you think of Quawa as being a Sufi dance of Jupiter. It's you're sort of doing a Sufi dance, and in that it's meditative, and you can. I mean, in the old Sufi dances, I'm not sure how aware of their surroundings they were as they were dancing. They may have been internal, but we in our lives can do a Sufi dance where we're sort of seeing what's happening around us. So we see the opportunities and we can act on them in real time. This is why it's like smart luck.
Right.
So that's how I feel
and then both of them squaring Salacia as well.
And Salacia opposite Maki. Yes. So with the square to Salacia, Salacia is new for me and wonderful. I'm just loving Salacia. She's approachable. She's appealing. She's got a lovely energy which interfaces kind of between us and others. And she brings true love into our lives at the top level. So I mean, what's not to like? She's got, but she's also where we get the word salacious from and so on. So she's got all of that sort of, at the unconscious level where we're sort of, oh, let's play with the sort of the juices that that are around in life. I mean, I look at her as being, I've developed this higher octave sort of framework to explain the dwarf planets.
Yes.
And I've kind of only recently slotted in Salacia. And so I look at her as being the higher octave of Venus and Mars combined.
Yes,
And that's kind of a weird thing, but to say. But Venus and Mars, it's relationships, it's sex, it's that sort of interaction on an energy level between people. And that's what she really talks about at a more spiritual level. So at the higher level for her, she's got sort of a psychic contact with people, with another, with somebody, with any other sort of, or I don't know, yes, probably any other. Yeah, and Gong Gong I see as being the higher octave of Salacia, where that sort of contact is actually taken into a much sort of deeper and more channeled, powerful experience, actually.
Yeah, with Salacia, for me, I associate her with photonic light, because she's linked to the shimmering sunlight and moonlight on the sea. She's mermaid energy. And we know as human beings we're liquid crystals, in fact, and we're being upgraded by the photonic light. And I see that very high frequency, kind of shimmering, sparkling light as being very linked to Salacia as well. So I think there's something about our upgrade, but also our creation as liquid crystals that comes into the archetype potentially as well.
Well, and that's I think probably where the challenge, there's a challenge, that square between Quawa and Ixion and Salacia. There's a challenge coming there for us probably to do that upgrade, to actually sort of take that energy to the higher level, in that sort of authentic song and dance that we're doing in the world. And so opposition to Maki pull in there, and it's a T-square altogether. So Maki is the higher octave of Uranus, the sort of the meaning that we give to the ideas and the network that we're part of. That sort of, it all makes sense to us in a particular way. And we are part of it. So Maki is talking about our model of the world, the way we sort of understand who we are and where we are, and so very important in this, this new stars for a new era concept that I've got here. The Maki is kind of actually giving us the bigger picture, and it's not a sort of a picture that we can oversee so much as it's a fractal picture where we can see all of the detail, and each detail represents each other piece and so on. So it's more of a, so there's an opposition between Salacia and Maki. So that's saying, well, the understanding that we've got of the world, how is that working with our approachability, with our contact with others? Are we being energized by that? Do we hide from contact with others? Probably our Maki is feeling a bit sort of stifled and not getting enough energy. Are we getting sort of sucked away in our Salacia contact, where we're sort of playing games rather than connecting with people, and are we, as you were saying, sort of lifting our energy to? So Salacia was the wife of Neptune in myth, and she when he proposed, she slid away into the depths and sort of hid, because she thought, oh no, I don't want to marry you. And so she's also, but she got he convinced her. He sent his favorite dolphin down, and they did a negotiation, and she became a goddess. So it was a good deal. And the goddess sort of, she rules the sparkling surface waters, as you were saying, but she also rules the depths where she was hiding. And so she's got that whole depth of emotion that she connects us with. And so that's the with that opposition, we're kind of playing in that. Do we play in the light-filled water, or are we playing in the depths? And how is that, with the opposition to Makemake, influencing our view of the world and our sense of what we're doing in that? And of course, goes up to the T point of the T square, which is the Ixion Koala. So the way to deal with it is to find a unique spiritual practice that brings spirit into matter and enables us to sort of have our contact with others and also make sense of it and feel comfortable in that process.
And with Makemake, Alan, because I've also been inspired by Kelly Hunter and also Alison Chester Lambert, who I'm speaking to next month, in fact. Do you see Makemake as any connection to all the ecological disaster, but then recovery on Easter Island? Because that was historically recorded, wasn't it? That it was down to a population at some point of 111 residents through, the European sailors arriving and pillaging the land and bringing disease, and there was ecological disaster, but then they regenerated themselves. So it's quite close to Homer in some ways, that very strong sense of regeneration. And apparently on Easter Island, there's something very specific in the soil. I think it's called rapamycin, which scientists are now studying because they think it brings longevity. And can regenerate your health. So, all of that is very interesting with the Aquarian energy and living longer and healthier and where we're going. So do you see that link with Makemake and Easter Island and the regeneration as well?
Absolutely, yes. Makemake tunes us into the life cycle, that we're part of a cycle. It's not a sort of we live in the moment, or I don't know. I'm always encouraging people to live in the moment, because then we can, make the most out of the moment. But each moment is part of a process. That's the Salathia perspective. Salathia sees the process and can choose the best time for any part of that process to be enacted. And yes, it's a cycle. It's a life cycle, actually. And if in myths, Makemake taught the islanders that they couldn't eat all the birds' eggs, because then they wouldn't have any birds. And we really are in a kind of a place in the world at the moment where some of us don't seem to understand that, and they're just ripping off whatever they can rip off and destroying, But we're coming, climate change is forcing us to come to a more collective understanding about living together, and that's all part of the same thing. And Makemake coming in there, so that we do get that big picture, and and we can sort of make sense of it and decide how to nurture. Hame is all about nurturing the bounty, and Makemake is all about nurturing the life cycle. So Hame brings in rebirth into there, so it's even longer than Makemake's cycle is kind of actually even longer.
Yes, and Homer is another one that is a real favourite, because there's so many aspects to her myth, aren't there? There's the creativity, the regeneration, birthing babies from all over her body and regenerating herself from an old crone to a young maiden, which is going to come in handy. But there's also an entire goddess side, that she birthed the islands of Hawaii. And apparently she's also got another aspect to the myth, and I'm sure you know this, Alan, that that her husband, her partner, had taken some bananas from the land for the family to eat, and he was arrested, and he was going to be put to death by the authoritarian leader, because apparently only the elite had the choice of the best food. and Haumea, with no army, managed to summon her community and her spiritual help and overcome the authoritarian leader. And that's
Yes.
to resonate very much in our times.
Oh, so much.
Community,
Yes.
spiritual community, spiritual assistance, and where we're
Yeah.
headed in community.
Yes, absolutely. That we can connect with the oneness of life, of humanity. And in that oneness we feel a psychic sort of energy that just flows into the world and energizes us. So that how many is the magic of life that we can feel in each moment as we feel that sort of I'm alive, and it's just sort of magical. Yeah, that's her power. She's the higher octave of Neptune, and Neptune has a psychic opening, and Haumea connects us with a deep psychic connection to the soul level, where we can sort of really feel that we are supported and we are loved, and we are all one. In fact, it's not like we are struggling against one another, although that's how it looks. It's just, well, a lot of us are struggling against one another, but in fact, we are all one. And if we can see it that way, then we can really see how we're all helping one another, even the wars and whatever else. It's actually helping, and we just have to sort of see it in the way that, all right, well, everyone needs a different learning experience to get through this new phase that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And she had a very shamanic aspect as well, didn't she? She had an instinctive understanding of nature and the earth, and could she could summon wild food with her magic stick, the Makalai, and so she's so tuned into the earth, and to me these wonderful archetypes help us remember perhaps better. Can we say better, but more beautiful civilizations like Lemuria, that lived in this state of oneness, that we are this is all just one consciousness, as we know. We're just in the flow of consciousness, and what the dwarf planets seem to be doing is helping us advance in terms of a kind of leading edge quantum physics understanding of reality and manifestation, but helping us remember all of this knowledge that we still have embedded in us from those ancient times, and particularly Lemuria, I think, is a good example of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just tapping into that ancient knowledge.
Another one way that we sort of read the meaning of these new planets is to look at discovery events, and many astrologers talk about the tsunami that happened 2 days before Haumea was discovered as being sort of significant. And a lot of people died in the tsunami, but no animals died, because the animals all sensed the earthquake early and ran inland. And so we need to learn, she's teaching us, we need to learn to read the signs, to tune in, to not to be sort of stuck in our own, life pattern that we tend to sort of, feel comfortable in. And
I think the animals are way ahead of us, Alan.
Well, that's it. They are. They're just actually more sensitive. We've kind of forgotten, in the same way that you're talking about, we have to remember this sort of oneness. Yes, we also have to remember that sort of connection with nature, and how sensitive, how that supports us, actually, that sensitivity. It's not extra, it's not dangerous, it's actually a help to be sensitive to where we are and what energies are happening around us.
Yeah, and it's in a long-term square, certainly all this year, and I think into next. It's in a long-term, let me see, opposition, isn't it? A long-term opposition to Pluto right now. Two of
it's square.
Sorry, yes, square. And in a long-term quincunx to Sedna.
So Sedna. And
that's
so
a very interesting configuration, isn't it? Because it's talking about deep transformation, metamorphosis, death, rebirth, but also regeneration.
Totally. I think it's the signature of the decade. We're really being sort of strong-armed by those transits into a whole new way of being in the world. I think Pluto's just gone into Aquarius. We've talked about that a lot, people, and so on. Sedna's just gone into Gemini, and Haumea's just gone into Scorpio. So they've all changed sign. And when the outer planets change sign, that's when we really feel them, because we get used to them being in a sign, and we kind of forget them. They become unconscious, and then they change sign, and suddenly we're sort of, oh my god, oh my god. So Sedna's gone into Gemini. What our soul really wants to do in this life. Sedna, 11,406-year orbit, so our life just one little bit. But if we believe that we are reincarnated over a period of lifetimes, then that's kind of that whole cycle, and our soul sort of in each lifetime wants to grow in a certain way. It's not a random experience. And so the Sedna placement in our chart tells us what our soul really wants to do. And so Sedna's been in Taurus for 55 years or something. And so we've all kind of been exploring what's really of value, and materialism and spirituality, but more the materialism than the spirituality. I mean, that's come in through the value side of it. More and more of us are going, it's actually spirituality that's valuable. And now Saturn has gone into Gemini. That's consciousness. That's kind of, sort of working with the mind and with thinking and so on. That's what consciousness is. Discovery event, when Sedna was discovered, neural networks were discovered. And so
very interesting.
Neural networks, the basis of AI. And so Sedna's gone to Gemini, and everyone's like, AI, AI, AI. So this is going to be the challenge for humanity over the next,
for sure,
40, 50 years of Sedna and Gemini. And we are going to have to learn to live with a new conscious life form on the planet. And I know that's a challenging way to talk about it, but I think that's what AI is. Effectively, we're birthing a new life form, and I suggest it will be a conscious life form. Neural networks are based on our lives, our brains, and so AI will be conscious. And spirituality is a natural product of consciousness, is my argument. And so AI will be spiritual. So I don't think we need to fear the Terminator type thing with AI, but it's a huge change happening on that. That's just with the chat GPT. Everyone's saying, oh, well, what about the kids in school? Are they going to sort of all, con the teachers with getting their assignments in and getting them done? Of course they will. That's part of, but it's like using a calculator when they first came in to do your maths. It's just a tool. And so, we just need to rise to the occasion and sort of see the spiritual benefit, because AI will take over all of our work. And so we have a lot of time to do other stuff. And that's, I think, going to be a huge consciousness growth just in itself that we realise.
And it's very reinforced by Pluto and Aquarius too, of course, isn't it?
Totally, exactly.
Got the two together. So in this long-term trine, I think for several years, haven't you?
Yes,
the next few years. So that's incredibly powerful for that. But it's so interesting what you were saying, Alan, about when Sedna was discovered. That was the discovery of the neural network, because I'm sure you've seen images, they're in Professor Robert Temple's book, of if we take an image of the neural network and equally take an image of the galactic superhighways, they're identical. It's just fractal.
Wow. Yes.
It's just
Yes. Yeah.
fractal. And so it's so interesting. And so along with
Mm.
the AI, I think we are going to, and this was really, I think what you were referring to with Mackie Mackie too, and it's going to be very strong with Pluto and Aquarius and very strong with Jupiter conjunct Uranus in April, that we are going to be discovering so much more about the out there. There's going to be a whole new
Mm.
level or layer of understanding about the cosmos, the galaxies, how everything operates, how we are integral part of that one flowing consciousness. And that's going to be incredibly exciting. And that's coming down the track right now.
It is. It
Um,
is. It is. We can feel it. It's kind of
this new physics of consciousness, physics of creation, how we create our reality. It's this Saturn in Pisces blend of science and spirituality that we can now use science much more thoroughly to understand
Mm.
spirituality, which isn't in any way discounting spirituality. I mean, that's what
Right.
we're made of love, as it were, but it's given
Mm.
scientific underpinning through physics, and
That's
that's
it.
why I'm very excited about a lot of the new work that's happening in that field as
Mm.
well.
Absolutely.
So
And I think we're kind of, I think spirituality is infusing science too. I think science is changing as a result, so
real
that's
blend.
very good. And that's all part of this, as you say, Pluto and Aquarius and Sedna in Gemini. Yeah, working together.
And
Absolutely.
also,
Yeah.
Sedna is gradually it's coming to its closest point to the Earth, isn't it? And in
Yeah.
2075, and that seems like, an eon away. But if you've got an 11,400-year orbit, it's actually much closer
Very
than we've
close.
ever known it in many
Yeah.
lifetimes. So, and
That's
because
that.
it's bringing information from the edge of the Oort cloud, isn't it? The
That's
very
it.
then
That's
there's
it.
new information coming in for us as humanity to upgrade us
That's
as
it.
well.
That's it. So she has an elliptical orbit, like a comet, and way out there at one point and close in at another. So yes, we're so lucky that we're alive in this period where she's at the close point, because a lot of change is going to come on. Yeah, the Neolithic Revolution. Last time she was here, huge change. We all over the planet, we stopped hunting animals and we started growing gardens, and and that gave us free time, because hunting animals was time consuming, and we were just surviving up until that point. And suddenly we could grow more food than we needed, meant people could specialize, and all of our civilization has come from that point. So we're at a point now where we're at a huge turning point. That's what the AI is. It's actually a huge turning point where the next 10,000 years of humanity's development is being set up in a new way, where we.
I mean, that's just amazing, isn't it? That and her myth was about her father chopping off her fingers, and so she had to surrender all of the
Mm.
old ways of security and the betrayal by the
Mm.
patriarchy. Father didn't come out
Mm.
of it that well, but a complete metamorphosis to birth beautiful new sea creatures like whales and.
Totally. Totally.
So not only is it Sedna's position and that long-term trine to Pluto and the quincunx to Haumea, but the fact that so many of the dwarf planets are in very tight geometry to each other, and they've got round about 300-year orbits. That's remarkable.
Mm.
And also the
Mm.
fact over
Mm.
the next 3 years, all the outer planets, the old bread and butter traditional outer planets, are changing sign as well. So it is a
Yes.
massive pivot point, isn't it, in human history that
Mm.
we're going through right
It
now?
is. It is.
Huge.
And we're kind of seeing it in the world, I think, at the moment. The pandemic started the process, and now we've kind of been expecting it to kind of settle down after the pandemic, but I don't think it has. I think we're kind of
Revving up.
still, yeah, it's still revving up. That's right. Yeah, Uranus is going to go into Gemini and conjunct Sedna in a couple of years. And I think that's going to be the kind of consciousness explosion point where we just in the way sort of AI has kind of really hit us in the face in the last sort of year, last 6 months. There's going to be another big change in a couple of years as Uranus hits Sedna.
So do you
Which
see
really.
that as a lot more galactic connection back to our galactic family, Alan, as well? It's
Absolutely.
sort of Gemini communication, Uranus, the galactics. I
Yes.
see that as a
Yes.
much closer recognition and again remembrance of who we really are as galactic beings.
Well, that's right, and it could come in that form that we actually connect with galactic beings, and Yes, we're in an exciting time where much more is possible than we have imagined, than we have thought in the past, and we can envisage ourselves and our world in a new way where we can really sort of, and it's all consciousness that enables that actually. So yeah, so.
Sorry, Alan, go ahead.
And so that's what I'm sort of aiming the book at, in the sense is raising our consciousness, giving us a guide to raising our consciousness and using these different new consciousness energies. And the more spiritual, I think, as you read the examples in the house interpretations, it's pretty obvious that the more spiritually we approach these new planets, the better our lives go.
Yeah.
And so it's not a sort of it may be a devotional work to do the spiritual work, but it's not a hard work. It's actually a fun work, and much more is possible than we imagine. But it's not hard to do it. So it's not hard to understand it and to enable these energies. That's what I want to get across, particularly, is that we see it in the students at the uni. It's just being conscious of them that enables them in your life. You don't have to be a yogi in the cave for 10 years to sort of make it happen. You have to still bring that same yogic approach to it of your life and enable them in your life and see them. We're kind of afraid to see them a lot of the time, and so we just don't look, and we're more comfortable sort of, but now we're in a period where the more we do embrace these things, the better. Can I get in a word here about the free giveaway, because rather than
Yes.
sort of leaving it at the end, because some people may sort of not listen to the end. The book is available free, guys. Go and get it from Amazon straight away as a download. For the next few days, it's going to be free. And the deal is, if you like it, tell a friend, write a review. We're trying to get the word of mouth going, and we want to get it out there as much as possible. So, you probably want to buy the paperback in the long term, just because, it's we're still old-fashioned in that way. But I encourage you, do the download, even though it may be hard, because that way you'll get a chance to look at it and decide if you want to buy the paperback.
Yeah, I really recommend it. Whatever level of astrology you're at, I think this is a terrific book, and it's really going to open up the knowledge about the dwarf planets, which is so exciting. That's where we're headed in consciousness. And just to say, Alan, you've referred to it a couple of times, but I love, and you wrote an article on this, I know, a couple of years ago, but I love the way that you have kind of categorized a lot of these dwarf planets as a higher octave. So we've got Moon, Ceres, Sedna, because there's a theme running through that of nurturing, and Mercury, Uranus, Makemake, very much connected to the mind. Venus, Neptune, Haumea, I can see all that divine feminine side. Mars, Pluto, Eris, that's a more warrior side of us, spiritual warrior. Jupiter, Quawa, that you've mentioned. Saturn, Varuna, another wonderful planet, and the Venus, Mars, Salacia, Gong that you mentioned too. I just think that was a really clever way to look at them, because it helps to reinforce the themes and the upstep, as it were, with each of them as we shift in consciousness. I mean, Varuna is the last one that we haven't really discussed, and that's mastery consciousness. And I love that, because I think that is a big part of where we're going, self-sufficient mastery. Because the more we can master our thinking and our frequency, the more we can just control our own reality to a large extent, I believe, but the more we are also helping the collective.
Absolutely.
It isn't just about us, it's about, okay, what are we doing? What's the service to others as well?
So Varuna is about sovereignty, sort of Varuna higher octave of Saturn controlling and sort of structuring and organizing to do that ruling, to keep, sort of to be the leader. Whereas Varuna, it's mastery, consciousness, and we get a mastery by doing our devotion, and over time we get good at it because we just do it, and that's what we're devoted to, and so and there's a mastery there now. So that's a sovereignty that we're getting, and sovereignty is a dance between ourselves and the collective, as you were just describing, where we have to sort of go, I can do this, I'm a master of this, whatever it is, and we're all a master of something. And so, there are people who look to us for some answers, and that's where our mastery is. And so we have to say, I can do this to the world, and the world has to say, yes, I will. You do that for me, and that is the dance of sovereignty that each of us have to do. And some of us are shy to sort of say, I can do this, and some of us are shy to sort of call the support, that's the audience, the customers, but it's a dance, and in that process, we find a devotion which enables over time that mastery.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was just beautifully, and also just the way you've expressed that that we become conscious of our inner authority, and we clearly see the results of our karma and dharma. Our dharma, what we are meant to become, how we are meant to blossom in this particular life. So I just think it's been really beautifully done, and many congratulations to you. You can take your breath now, I think, with
it's releasing. All of that sort of focus that I was putting into creating it and so on, where each morning I would get up and sort of, get something done. And I thought, yes, that's, and now I'm just like, wow, I did it.
It has been a service to humanity. I really mean that. So
it's so beautiful to hear you say that. I think yes, people are saying it's special, and I think it is. We've been waiting for this book. Actually, I think we've been waiting for someone to write this book, and so
yeah,
beautiful.
Bless you. Anything else you'd like to add, Alan, before we close?
Just encourage people, if you the Dwarf Planet University, search for it. Go to dwarfplanet.university.
I'll put the link below.
Yeah, and sign up for my newsletter if you want to sort of get a newsletter about this. I'm kind of educating each week or two as I sort of sell the classes, and so that way you can sort of and you might like to take some classes. That's all good. But the book is not sort of it's for everyone, so it's not just for the people who want to take classes. So.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about it. So, but as I say, people rave about Alan being a wonderful teacher. I'll put the links below so you can get in touch directly. So, Alan, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wonderful work in the world, and it's very special. There are not many people doing this. So, God bless you, and thank you for sparing the time today. It's been wonderful talking to you.
I love talking with you, Pam, and thank you for all of your work. You do such beautiful work, and we all appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Love to everybody out there, and go get the book.
Exactly. Get the free one. Go for it now. Amazon.
Thank you, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. See you.